Well, that's all of them. Not a Jew left in sight. We wiped them all out, I announced to the rest of the crusaders that had gathered around me. I wiped the stale blood from my sword onto the grass casually, and placed the sword back into its pocket on the side of my scabbard. This had become a weekly routine for me, and it didn't even bother me that some of the bloodstains would not fully come off. Everyone nodded in approval as our attention turned to the head of our group, Walter. Well, it's been a long day. We've been traveling for a while. Let's just stop for tonight. Fabian, can you patrol tonight, just to make sure no one's around? Yes, sir, I mumbled, although I wanted nothing more than to lie down and take a nice long nap. We headed about a mile to the east, following the wide road, and stopped at a flat area near many trees. We sat up in the open and devoured the food that we had gathered from the Jewish houses. As the stars began to come out, I rebuckled my scabbard onto my waist and headed away from the camp to do the daily patrol. I brushed past the nearby trees and headed to the right. After a few miles of walking, there was an end to the trees. I wrinkled my brow in confusion, for I had assumed that there were around 10 miles of forest before we came to the next town. I looked around and became aware of houses in the nearby area. Could this be another town? I thought I had already patrolled the whole area for nearby Jewish towns, but had I missed one? Quickly becoming aware of the fact that I was no longer in hiding, I scanned the area for a nearby tree or bush. I found a large tree to my left and pranced behind it swiftly. I peeked my head around the corner to scan the town when a soft voice spoke behind me. "You're not here to kill us, are you?" I whipped my head around and pulled out my sword instinctively. When I realized that I was facing a person with no weapons, I slowly lowered my sword. I stood face to face with a brown-haired, blue-eyed woman who seemed to be in her early 20s. The moment I laid eyes on her, my heart skipped a beat. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, and I'd seen a lot of women back home. This woman looked so sweet and innocent. She continued to stare at me as I was quickly jolted back to reality. No, I stuttered as I began to sweat. "No, kill you. What? Why would I do that? Because I'm Jewish," she quickly added. My heart sank as I exhaled a long breath. This was another Jewish town, and this beautiful woman was Jewish. This would have meant that I should kill her as well. Although I was used to killing Jews without sympathy, a pang of remorse filled me at the thought of killing this woman. "No, I would never harm you. I'm Fabian." I held out my hand naively as the woman took a step back. The look of alert on her face made me feel as if I was some sort of monster. To reassure her that I was being sincere, I unbuckled my scabbard and placed it, along with my sword, on the ground in front of me. This seemed to assure the woman, who timidly held out her hand to meet mine. "I'm Baka," she said with a hint of confidence in her voice. We held each other's hand for what seemed like an eternity. I could feel the sweat pressed onto my shirt as I held her gaze for as long as I could. I'd never felt this way before. Sure, I had girlfriends back home, but this was different. I knew in my heart that I couldn't harm this woman. As she finally pulled her hand away from mine, I began conjuring up conversation starters in my head. "So, can you show me around or something? I'm kinda new here." The look on her face gave away that she still did not completely trust me. "I will not hurt you or your people. I promise." I gave her my sword as an offering, but she declined. Instead, she grabbed my hand and began running into the forest. "Come on!" she exclaimed. I smirked and followed her into the town without looking back. We spent the rest of the day together, hand in hand, running through the back of the town so that we would not be seen. We would stop every once in a while to drink water or to throw the leaves at one another. When it began to get dark, we ventured back over to the tree we had met at. "This was fun," Baka said softly as she pulled a leaf out of my hair. "It was, but now I have to go back. When can I see you again?" Baka paused for a moment and looked at the tree above us. "Here." She plucked at 5 leaves off of the tree and handed them to me. "These are leaves from the greatest tree in our camp. They can represent each hour. When you know you can come and see me, place a certain number of leaves under the tree. I'll walk by this tree all the time. Then we can meet based on the number of leaves you put under the tree. How's that?" She smiled sweetly, and I knew I would not be able to refuse her offer. "That's perfect," I said as I plucked a few more leaves from the tree. "See you then. But wait. If we need to stop seeing each other, or if you all decide to move on, place 1 leaf under the tree. Then we'll know that we can't meet anymore." Hoping that would not happen anytime soon, I nodded and headed off onto the road. By the time I had gotten back to the camp, the rest of the Crusaders were already eating dinner. I attempted to sneak in as Walter stopped me in my path. "Where have you been?" I grunted under my breath as I turned around to address him. "Extra patrolling, sir." Walter raised his eyebrow, yet he did not question me. As we went to sleep that night, I couldn't wait to start patrolling the next day. We decided to stay in this area for a bit longer as we stocked up on supplies. The thought of being able to see Baka again excited me. Every day I would go on border patrol and place a certain number of leaves under the tree. That night I would go on patrol again and spend time with her. It seemed to be working to our advantage until one night, when I was waiting at the tree, I heard rustling from a nearby bush. I glanced and began to walk over to the bush as Baka came from behind me. "There you are! What took you so long? Let's go!" I pushed away my thoughts of alarm as I followed Baka into her town. We sat behind a little house and talked for a bit. That's when I heard the first scream. Baka and I turned around immediately. The scream had come from inside the town. I ran around the corner of the house to see multiple townsfolk crowded around a bloody body. Before I could go to the group of people, 4 more screams filled the air. I looked from side to side as the people in the town began to fall to the ground one by one. Then I saw it. I saw the Crusaders. My jaw dropped as I became aware that the Crusaders were here. They were the ones who were killing these people. They had found this Jewish town. I looked Baka in the eyes, and my heart broke as I saw the tears streaming down her face. "How could you? I trusted you." I grabbed her by the arm as I heard another screech. I dragged her through the dead bodies without looking down to see the damage that had been done. I made sure not to step on top of any of the bodies as the screams continued to sound. I jumped in between the 2 trees and pulled Baka with me. "I didn't do this. Come on, we can run away together," I muttered with as much confidence as I could muster. "No. You betrayed me. Now I have no family, no home, nothing." Baka forcefully pulled her hand away from mine and ran deeper and deeper into the forest. I tiptoed back over to the tree where the 5 leaves still remained. Darn. Still no sign of her. I thought as I clenched one leaf in my left hand. Should I do it? Is there time to give up? Maybe she already went away from here. I couldn't bear to do it. I threw the leaf on the ground and sat next to the tree until the moon shone. I had no home now. I left the Crusaders once they found out that they had betrayed me and followed Baka and I. The Crusaders were long gone now and probably at some other Jewish town by now. I had nowhere to go after this. I searched for Baka but couldn't find her. I continued to count the stars in the sky, and just as I was getting up, when a soft voice spoke behind me. "You're not going to kill me, are you?" I smiled and ran into Baka's arms as we embraced for an eternity.